step out, get some air now, let your edge out. To some iceberg, you'll be heavy in my mind. Can you get the heck out? I need rest now, got me bummed out. You so you, baby, baby, baby. I've been on my empty mind, shit. I should've kept from you.
Good evening. My name is William Wilmoth. Woobug 2, if you're thirsty. And today I'm going to be doing a sew-along and an inside look at my promo for season 2 of the Rose Ball. I am the Broadway Ball winner. I am a fashion designer, I am an actor, I am a singer, I am a model, I am gorgeous. The list literally goes on and on. But above everything, I'm mentally unstable. For this season of the Rose Ball, Lola has asked us to... What did she ask us to do? The task and/or theme of this promo is, and whole season is going to be dark red and black thorns. Rose Productions is moving into a more edgy, dark side. This is where she comes from. This is what we're doing now. So when it comes to sewing and putting things together, I prefer to have an organized space. Initially, I was over in my living room sewing all my stuff, and things would just be out everywhere, and there'd be scrap pieces, and I have a doggy, so I gotta make sure everything is like cleaned up and taken care of, because that will make your mind not as clear as it should be when you're working on anything, especially fashion. So I like to have an organized space, and now that I'm able to have that with getting this table for Christmas, thanks to artist distraction, it's an absolutely extraordinary gift for somebody who likes to stay organized but has not been able to do so. And I plan to use it. In fact, I opened it up and the very next day I'm filming a sew-along. Everything I don't keep just here. I make sure to have my pins and magnets, things that I need over here. And then over to my left, I keep the sewing machine, so it's out of the way for when I'm ironing and folding and dealing with the patterns. And then when I go to actually sew, that's when I'll take it and bring it back over to this space. Do a step, clean up your mess, get things out of your way. Do a step, clean up your mess, get things out of your way. So we are over here on the other side. I promise you the grass is not much greener over here. We'll start with this top drawer. So at the top, I wanted to make sure that I have all the things that I use most often. So we put our threads and our different eyelets and our measurements and our spare needles, as well as our ball bangs and all of our scissors. We got the roller here in case we want to do long patterns or long pieces. And, you know, a spare pair of pliers, because you never know when you need to yag a needle on through your fabric. Some fabrics are tough, you never know. So second drawer, we have our organized markings. I keep a different color of everything depending on what fabric I use, but normally I just use the soap, because soap, when you put on fabric, it comes off after you iron it off. And so, but on some fabrics, when you're marking in the inside, I use the same color and it won't be shown later, or especially with Expo, it really comes off if afterwards you wash it or whatever. And then I have my pins and paintbrushes just in case, you never know, and a pencil, things like that. Safety pins, because you always need them. And then here we have all the patterns that I've used and different ones I have used and haven't used yet. For instance, we have this one. This is a vest that I actually made for Lola for season 1, her Mad Hatter look. You can tell it's for Lola because sizes are fat and super fat. Moving down to the third drawer, this is the drawer I like to keep all my embellishments in, my jewels, anything I'll add to a costume, some beads to make any kind of costume jewelry that'll match whatever I'm wearing, zippers, Velcro, and then here we have our buttons. I think it's always good to keep a wide variety of buttons. These are buttons that I've kind of collected or kept or had throughout time, you know, like a hoarder situation, but it's like actually organized. And so that way, no matter what you're wearing, you can just reach in there and grab something. But I usually end up like buying special ones. You know, I got the buttons on the side, like don't need no side buttons, no. The final drawer here is just the drawer I keep my glue gun in, my iron, extra glue sticks, and then in here is like all the different foots and different parts for the sewing machine if I need to change it to a zipper foot or one that will help me with zigzag stitching or different things like that. So first thing I like to do as far as starting the whole process of getting this look from in here to on here, you know. So the first thing I like to do is write it down. Get a gist or zhuzh of what I'm about to accomplish or try to accomplish. So I have this notebook here. This is something, a sketchbook, a fashion book that I like to keep a lot of my stuff in here. There's false promises to myself, recipes for disaster, things like that. As far as Rose Ball goes, I made sure to entry in this each time that I made a new look, so I could go back into it and just be able to see what I was working with each time. And to sketch something out first really gives you an idea of what you're doing and going for, and it also makes for a greater final product. A Joann's coupon. I'm gonna have to save that for later. This was sort of the beginning of Rose Ball Season 1, and I have my neon rumpy. Obviously, I have the worst handwriting of all time ever. It still worked out. So then we have the floral, the shirt with the gloves, and Elsa, and the ringleader jacket for Lala. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on a fresh page. First, I'm going to label it, and this sketch is also to make sure that you list your measurements. Every part of the costume I plan to have, you know, be on some part of my body. So I need to make sure that this is a full list of measurements from H to T. So I go back to some of the ones I have to cheat off the measurements. And you know, because it's basically the same thing, I just make sure to add a few inches in the waist each time. So I'm gonna go ahead and label it so I can reference back to it and I'll know exactly which one it is. So we'll do Cs2 promo. We do the height. I am 6 foot tall, just at 6 feet. Like enough to where I can reach things for my small roommate, but not enough where I can play pro basketball. Your chest measurement will be next. I am a blanky blank. Waist measurement, which will be kind of the most important. Get my hip measurement. Is that like one hip? Then you want your neck to back measurement, and that's going to be from here all the way down to the bottom of your tailbone. And that's a very important measurement for coats or for jackets. Neckband measurement around your neck. So there's a couple more measurements I need here. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of my measures. And usually it's just a rough estimate. You wanna get it as close as possible. But you always make bigger anyway when you're cutting your fabrics, because seams will be sewn together and then you have to go over it and serge or zip stitch your edges, and that takes a lot of the fabric out. So remember, when you're doing patterns, or if you're just measuring and then cutting your fabric, that you're always accommodating for more. You always want extra fabric left over. It's easier to cut it out or sew it out than have to sew in a whole nother flap or piece that adds a seam, and believe me, it's not fun. As I said, you'll be roughly estimating, but since we're using a stretch fabric, we want it as close to this measurement as possible. And I think that's all the measurements I need. Starting with the base of the outfit, as for my idea, I was wanting to play off of something that I already had in mind to do for a photo shoot. It was this Reigning King look that it was going to be very raw and stripped back. I wanted to have this crown I got that is semi-medieval. I was going to do the turtleneck black shirt that with the long sleeves that came down, and then the half gloves, just a crown and black chic. I never got around to that look, and I'm glad that I didn't, because now I get to use that for this promo and kind of add on to it more of the idea that I had for the promo initially. So it's like two ideas combining together. So we'll get started sketching this out. Start with the head and the crown that I have that is thorny, medievally. I actually am still the reigning king of Rose Productions. However, I am not the reigning winner. Congratulations to Sperm Donna. She has become the newest member of Rose Productions Winner's Circle for winning the Rose Ball Season 1. If you do not know who Sperm Donna is, you should follow her on Instagram and check out some of her work, because she's very talented and deserves her spot. So as I mentioned, we'll do the turtleneck shirt, and this is all going to be in black. I do not use a pattern for when I'm using stretch, especially for a turtleneck. I've made this in kind several times, so I generally know my measurements and how to make that without a pattern whatsoever. A lot of things I like to do without a pattern, but most of the time I force myself to use a pattern, so things are more clean cut and measurements are extremely precise. It just depends. So this look is going to be half working off not using patterns and then half using patterns. It's almost like you can see the difference in professionalism in the clothing, which causes you to wonder, causes mystery, and that's what fashion is. We come out, we're gonna do the long sleeves in the same black. Make sure there's a turtleneck here, and the half gloves. So this is kind of what we have so far, and like I said, I know it's terrible, but this is going to be the top. So as I progressed this from the original look, I wanted to go ahead and for the black in the base, bottom out with almost a pair of like jorts, but they're like the same stretch black fabric. I will just make the pants separately from a partial pattern that I have in my pattern tub. And that's just going to completely go up, and then the shirt part is going to go over it, and then the belt will just cover any shirt line that's left. They're not connected, and I'm just using that for the base. It's almost like a Batman suit or Robin suit, Batwoman. Then with the pattern, I got these sleeved patterns for Christmas. And it initially comes here and then poofs out on the sides, like so. And then the other one. And this is going to be the darker red fabric, which I got in a suede, so when it comes to the poofs, it's able to bunch more and give the poof feel that I see in the pattern, and I'm really trying to represent. They're gonna come down, and then they're going to poof out a little bit towards the outside each. And that's what the pattern is. And so then on the bottom with the legs, what I was going to do is do the same sleeve pattern. However, what's going to happen is whatever my shoes, so my shoes are gonna be down here, and they're gonna be pointed black with this red suede on top of them, so it gives a cohesive red look that I was looking for. And the legs are going to come up, and I want this same sleeve that's connecting to the shirt to connect all the way from the bottom of where my shoe starts up my leg, so it's a reverse of the poof sleeve, but going up the other way. And so it's gonna come up and then poof, I would say, either on the knee or around the knee. But I want it to end at the poof and then go into the black jumper. It's a match poof up here, and then the bottom leg poofs will go into the shoes. I will have the belt that will be the same red suede. So just a rough estimate of what we're looking at. The sleeves are going to be the suede red, and then the black stretch fabric is going to be internal one. Okay, so I actually found a pattern that has a pair of shorts. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that for the bottom half. That way I can get a close fit. Mainly the crotch part of a pair of pants or a pair of shorts is something that you wanna be very precise. So I'll go ahead and use a pattern for that instead of just deciding not to. And this is the other pattern we're going to use. This is the sleeve pattern I was saying. This poof sleeve here is what we're looking for. And see, that's rendering. So these are the two patterns that we're going to be using. Everything else is going to be on the fly. So now that we've decided which patterns we're going to use and we have those set out to the side, we're gonna go over and look into, I have a tub for fabrics and scrap fabrics and non-used fabrics I've gotten for Christmas. Then we'll go ahead and move to the tub full of different patterns that aren't ironed and put back into one of these. I just leave them there if they're patterns that I'm going to use again. When I use them, I just take them out, and you always iron before you use them anyway. So if they're wrinkled in the box or whatever, I just iron them out. We're gonna go ahead and step over and do that. So what we're looking at here is my two tubs. This tub to the left is my tub full of different patterns that I would like to use. And I'm actually going to grab this pattern here. It's a belt pattern, just something I've used for other things that I need belts for. I'm gonna use that for this one as well, just to create my own kind of belt. This here is the tub full of fabrics. And I have lots of different scraps and things like that. Fabrics I got for Christmas I haven't used yet. I got my Jezebel pink. These two here at the top are what we're going to be using. This is the black stretch, and this here is the red suede. So we'll grab these. Got everything here, and we're gonna start initially with our first pattern. And that's just for the pair of shorts here, for the bottom half of the jumpsuit. And when I do the shirt, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that pattern at the same time as I cut my shorts pattern. But again, that's gonna be an eyeball, especially for the collar part of the turtleneck. I kind of just take my neck measurements and then I go off of that, because it's going to have to stretch over your head, but it still has to be a tight, smooth, fashionable look in the end. So all patterns come with instructions. It says see shorts. So what it does is show you how to fold the piece of fabric that you're going to be using, and then you place the pieces that they tell you about. Simon, no sir, do not be licking. Lay. I'm sorry, buddy. You can't be licking. He just had surgery. Poor baby. Anyway, it shows you here for the shorts pattern all the pieces that you need. So initially you would open the pattern up and cut every single piece that it says here and place it on the fold of your fabric. I just need pieces 11 and 14 because that gives me the legs and the crotch pattern that I need, and that's all I'm looking for. We're going to find pieces 13 and 14 for C shorts. She's cooking a roast in there and it just smells so it's pieces 11 and 14 are what I'm looking for. I don't know where I got those other numbers. Oh, there's 14. So here we go. We found 11 and 14. They actually go out into a full pants pattern. We just cut here for the shorts. It gives you a list of measurements, and depending on what your measurements are, you go by what it says usually. But again, things can be a bit confusing. So you just kind of want to make sure that you know your measurements and you also know how patterns themselves fit on you. This one in particular, we're going to be cutting way shorter than initially it's supposed to be. So the shortest is the 44 is the smallest we can get. which is sort of around the number that I want. However, I want it to be a little tight fitting on me. So I'm probably going to actually cut right on this one, but normally you would do a little bigger. Now that we got these ironed out, they'll be ready to go ahead and be pinned to your fabric. So now we're gonna go ahead and grab the sewing machine and bring her over here. It's time to break Big Bertha out. Get her going, get it popping, let's do it. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and re-thread the spool as well as the bobbin on the bottom. We'll just take this off, and real quickly I'll just show you how to thread the top and bottom. Quick refresher. But I'll also show how we're gonna re-spool your bobbin for immediate use and access. We're gonna hope we have enough black thread here. If not, I'm gonna have to take a break and probably film in the morning. Ask Lola for an extension. All right, so it's here, and we're gonna, just for this brother sewing machine in particular, this is the way to thread it. They're a lot different. Usually I don't see this piece, which just holds your thread. But I like it for this because it kind of helps it from getting too tight or getting bunched up at the top. So I have less mess ups there. So I pull it around this little doohickey here. Don't expect terminology, doop doop. And then that's when you put it into your bobbin hole. See this little piece here? You're gonna put it through the top, not through the bottom, just where it connects at the top there. And then you'll place it into there and click it into place, because then when we start to press the pedal, the foot, it'll just kind of wind itself up. And you do that until you get a certain amount in there, and then you can cut the excess off. Turn the machine on. Whoop whoop. I'm gonna hold the extra piece because if not, it'll get caught at the bottom just when there's extra. So we'll do it a little bit slowly. She's pulled in. Once she's all the way in there and ready to go, that's when you'll cut your extra off here. Snip, snip, snip. You'll just keep going. All right. And so you'll unclick it here and pull it up. The end of it's gonna get cut off when it comes in here. Okay, so we have our bobbin here, our Mary bobbins, and here's the machine. This is where the bobbin is placed in, and we're going to place it in to where the thread is facing what we're looking at towards the left side, and just put it in there. Now, see, you want it to not unravel here. You want it to continue to go around, so you'll pull it like that, and then it'll just kind of naturally go underneath that part of it, and then that's how your bobbin is connected. So then this extra piece over here is just to like pull it through and get it cut at the end. So all you have to do after that is put your little casing on, since she's snug as a bug in a rug, and you just place it in here and the bobbin is ready to go. Moving on to our top thread, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna unpull it from this space here that we had it to get the bobbin in place, and we'll pull it through here. Pardon my dust, it's all the different glitter fabrics I make for Lola. It needs to be placed back here behind both of those, and then straight down, and you just follow it like a track, and then in this space here you just pull it over the side of that, and you can move that up or down with your side thing here, and it moves. It's just a little side knob that allows you to move that a lot slower than the automated portion does it for you. You just put it through your little needle spot. Sometimes the thread will fight with you a little bit, but if you give it a fresh cut off the top, it just makes it super easy to place in there. Once it's through its little hole there, that's when you pull it through this crevice here, this Zoe crevice. And see, what happens is you always want this to stay running towards the back, no matter what. And it's always going to tell you that this is your top thread, because sometimes the bottom thread will come out as well to a certain length, like after you cut the fabric off the piece you're sewing. It looks like we are ready to start sewing. We're going to go ahead and start with the hardest part of this twofer and do the shirt first. Because it has more pieces. So we have the main body shirt, and then we have the little part for the turtleneck, and then the sleeves right here. When we put the sleeves on, the rest of it kind of comes together. The sleeves will connect here at the bottom, and then you'll be able to stitch the sides. Before I completely stitch it, I'll just flip it around and open it up, and we'll place the collar on the turtleneck. Okay, now that we got our sleeves on, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pull the machine over, and we'll just run the sleeves through so we can really get a base of what's the outside and what's the inside of the shirt before we put the collar on and then sew the sides up. All right, for my first lines of stitching I like to do, I just go ahead and stay with the base stitch. That's just their regular default. It just is a nice straight line through, and then afterwards is when I go through it with either a zigzag stitch or any one of these options that go best with what you're trying to do. I do the base stitch, and then I go over it with a certain zigzag stitch that I personalize up here as to fit what I like best for my garments and stuff like that. Because I don't have a regular serger. It's not something I've got yet, so I just like to go ahead and cop out and do the old ziggity zag. All right, so we're gonna start with the first sleeve, and we make sure these bottom lines are lined up with each other and going to make that perfect straight line stitch. You place this down so it will hold your fabric, and then I take my first pin out. We're gonna press the foot down, and it's gonna automatically go forward, and what I do is I originally take a couple forward and then I do one back. So you wanna make sure that you leave some room over here to be able to serge the edge so it's protective from stretches and being big boned in. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start our stitch here. You pull it in, and I always do the little back stitch. Make sure that you're manually keeping guide on where the fabric is going to go. So if it starts to pull this way, pull left or right, you just place them back together with your hand as you go, taking your pins out. And then you just snip your extra off. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go and we're gonna put it back through and do a zigzag stitch on top of it as to serge the edge. For my zigzag stitch, I like to use a certain one. You just go off of, you know, what they tell you. So 0.4 is like a close to a zigzag stitch here. So our 0.4 is going to match this zigzag stitch the most. However, I like it more to be jagged than down. So I just up the sway of the needle here. So now it'll pull up and go over more to the left. So it's just gonna close off the edge of it and make it a lot stronger. And I'll be doing this to the inside of every part that I sew. All right, now we can just go ahead and turn it out this way. And we have both the sleeves. And they'll just connect on the bottom and we'll sew all the way around. So now we're gonna go ahead and put the turtleneck part onto it. I'll have a lot of slack underneath so it can pull on it and tug on it and yank on it, all of those things. Alright, this is after I went ahead and did both sides of the shirt and closed it with my regular base stitch and then my zigzag stitch. And so this is what it looks like inside out. So we're back with the finished pair of shorts. They are perfect length that go down past my knees how I needed them. So they'll be under the poof piece. And the top was the perfect length to be exactly where I need it, where the belt is going to meet the jumpsuit. Basically, the base of the costume is done. And since I have the black fabric out, I'm gonna go ahead and get the gloves out of the way. That way all the black fabric can be done. And then we just do our red poof pieces and the belt. And I'm going to be styling a pair of shoes to go with this look as well. All right, so let's put these to the side here. I definitely cut these differently. This stretches open here, which is what we were looking for, and this one I had seemed to have cut this way, which makes it to where this part of it where your hand goes in doesn't stretch much. So we're looking at a glove that's definitely not gonna fit. So she's garbage. Swish. Let me go ahead and cut out a new hand. So now we have both gloves done. Now that we have our last piece of black fabric and its pattern done, we can go ahead and see how all of that looks together. Alright, so just a little refresher, a little freshy fresh, refreshka. We're doing pattern B, the little poof sleeve with the arm piece. We're doing all that in red. So we're gonna be doing 2 of those for the top, and we're gonna be doing 2 for the bottom, for the knee poofs. Altogether, we're going to be doing 4 of these. The poofs. But I want the poof to be a little bit smaller and tighter. So it's very like Duke of Weaselton, Man of La Mancha, Leonardo da Vinci, and Ever After. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my fabric over that we just cut out. So I have 4 sets of here, And then I went ahead and did an interfacing with this fabric just to sturdy it out, and it'll also help give the poofy zhuzh we're looking for. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer my notches and things like that on the pattern. They have the notches where you clip them in, so you know where to attach the pieces together. And they specify more in the instruction pamphlet. So I'm gonna do the same with the sleeve band. I'm going to go around the edges of these, and I made sure to cut everything the 10 here, and that's why these come in here, because it's the 10. I wanted the smaller sleeve. I didn't want the over-the-top large one, which is usually my style, but we're going for something a little bit different here. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer my markings. All right, so the instructions here are pretty simple. I mean, it can be a little bit intricate because they sometimes don't completely specify, but at the end of the day, you just try to make as much sense of it as you possibly can. Next, on the steps, it wants us to make our little darts and or divots and or folds here on the top. The piece actually just sits on top of the shoulder. However, in the design that I drew, as well as the way I would think it would fit best on my costume and envisioned it, was to completely wrap around my arm. It would cut it in half, and I want it to be all the way around, and the measurement is already good for my arm. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna stitch different lines, sort of like my own boxes, to represent and mimic the design on it, because I really like that kind of stretch on top of it feel. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start where we left off in our little dots here, and we're just gonna do a base stitch all the way across. All right, so we've got our original base stitch here, and now I'm gonna go ahead and do a second stitch, usually just the length of the presser foot, just so I know there's distance between them. All right, and then just to give it the kind of square fold box feel, I want to make sure that I'm giving quite a bit of stitch, so I'm going to change my positioning of my needle and to a certain position that's going to give a darker, more bold line of thread, and that's just going to go right in between the two of these, just to really make the distinction. This is how inevitably I'm going to make every single square that I'm making up here. I'm going to be doing it the same way.
that fabric gives a little bit of a shimmer, so if it's not directly in the light
Because
correctly.
it's suede. Isn't this beautiful?
It is really pretty.
And it's going to just close everything at the top of the poof, and that's what's going to push it out, sort of like an umbrella or a parachute. This is the top that hangs on the shoulder. I went ahead and placed the band inside where both right sides are facing. The right side of the band is facing the right side of the big sleeve, and I went ahead and pinned. Okay, so this is what the sleeve is gonna look like turned inside out, and we already have the band on there, and I went ahead and did some stitches at the end just to make it finished and look like the rest of the garment. Little bunch and make a poof. And as I said, we're gonna make 4 of these, 2 for the arms and then 2 for the legs. And the one with the legs will have longer extensions out, so it'll be the same kind of band, but they're gonna be longer so they cover my full leg. So it's just like the band we put on the end over here to close the big part of the sleeves. These one will be for my knees. This is going to be my band that I put on it. So I'll connect this side to this big side over here. The sleeves are gonna go all the way up to the arm. However, there's multiple ways that you could use these sleeves as I'm seeing it. You could do it this way. You could put it on the elbow here. You can even drop it all the way to the end and make an extendo. The way that I would like it for this time, I'm gonna bring it all the way up to the top of the shoulder and give it a nice poof in the forearm. Sort of like I have muscles, but I haven't worked for them in years. The leg piece, I wanted to go ahead and try it on and see what it would look like, and I was not disappointed.
I like nice things. I mean nice things. Open the door. Tell her that you're ready to explore. Yeah, adventure door. Yeah, I had to talk about my board. I need support. Like I sports my brain, I need support. I say less is best, but I need more. Shooter took me shopping, took it so you no more. When I go to sleep, Gucci sheets now. Going out to eat, don't eat no meat now. Yeah, we from the street to get a beat down. Skin tan, cause we living on the beach now. Shining like a diamond, fine dining, 40,000, turn that shit to 50,000. Bitch, you wildin', stranded on the island, money piling, Rolex cause I put that time in.